All right, welcome to the next part in this series. Just as a quick review, we are essentially building a food tracking app to track how healthy you're being, essentially. And we have two main models. We have foods, which themselves have things like calories, fat, sugar, and protein. And then we have entries, which is you basically deciding on a particular day, choosing that food. We have the ability to even search between the already created ones, or even creating a new one right on the fly. Let's create a new one, chocolate. There we go, chocolate created. And it's in there and everything is good, and you'll see that it will also be in this list here. We are using a few really good packages for this. One of them is Hive, which is what we're basically using as our backend. It's our local database that stores all this stuff persistently. We're using Riverpod for our state management, and we're using AutoRoute for routing. We're also using Freeze for our models, which allows us to write less code and generate better, safer, data-driven models. Okay, what I kind of have in mind next is a couple of things. While we've been doing foods, the way I've kind of been thinking in my head but haven't actually articulated is when you're adding it, you're essentially adding the amount of calories and saturated fat and sugar and protein, not in the entire food necessarily, but in on a per serving basis. And what I want to be able to do is when we add an entry, not only do we pick the food itself, but we choose how many servings we've had. So, we might have 2 servings of bread, for instance. So let's work on making that change. And we can do that in our entry model. And every time we make an entry, let's make a required int value of servings. And that means in our empty one, we need to instantiate this with 1, just as the default. And then because we've made this change to our model, we will have to rerun our generator code, which will generate all the getters and setters and comparables and everything for the entry model. Okay, we'll just rebuild. And now we are starting to get errors, and that's because we had all this data in our database, and the entry was always, or the amount of servings was always null. So this is creating a problem. We could solve this by making int a optional field and work with it accordingly, but I think it makes more sense to just kind of fix this and clear our database. So to clear our database, one way we could just do that just for now is we could just change the name of kind of like our root collection. And I'm just gonna call app1 for now, just so we can kind of work in this clean state. Likely we'll eventually have settings buttons that lets you like fully clear it out and everything, but we'll just do this. Okay, so now that it's cleared, we should be pretty good. Now the next thing we have to do is when we're adding a serving, we have no food now, so let's just add at least 1 food, banana, and it has maybe 10 calories. Let's just do 100, 4, and 5. I have no idea if any of that is correct, but we will have it there. So now we're good with that, and in theory I can still add an entry. This should work. You know what, there's one thing that would actually be, I see what happened. One thing we should actually do is, and I just actually noticed it now, whenever we create a new food, we should actually update our search provider too. So on our, let's find out, where do we do that again? We'll just kind of step through. So on the food list screen, we have the food form and show the food form. Actually, what we could do is we can await this bottom modal sheet, and then at the very end, and then we do this another spot too, ref.read, and we want to use the food search provider .notifier.clear, because the clear essentially will, if you look at it, it clears it, but it also then does the listing again. So let's just see if that worked. So I'm going to add a new food called apple. And apple is going to be very healthy. And hopefully now here, when we go to add a new entry, we actually, oh, we don't see it in there. That's interesting. Let's see. We awaited this, returning the food form. Food form itself, I wonder if there's just an order of operations here. So it goes, shows a snack bar, it pops it with the new food. Search provider, search provider all clear. Interesting. Maybe I just didn't rebuild properly. Or maybe I'm just on the wrong, no, on food list screen, the action button, we await the bottom modal sheet. Okay, well, what else we could do is in our food form, after this is done, if new food is null, let's also do this here, ref.read search, food search provider .notifier.clear. Okay, so we have this, and let's make orange. Very strange. When I click it again, it does show up. Okay, I just fiddled with this for a bit, and what I land on doing, at least for now, is just, I think what's happening is this thing is finishing up, and this is just happening too quickly, like it hasn't actually been persisted to the database yet, so I'm just adding this little delay in here, and it is working as expected now. Okay, so now when we add an entry, we should be able to, let's just choose our grapes here, and it goes in, and if we actually go to our entry card, instead of, let's just temporarily do this, and let's show entry.servings, .toString, because it's an integer, and we should see 1, and that's just because the default was 1. And actually, what would be probably good, this is actually probably a better thing to put than the date anyways, so let's actually do this properly. I'll make it a string like this, and we will go servings. Now we can do a fun little trick here where we can decide whether we want to have that s, meaning is it plural, and to do that we can go entry.servings.length, or entry.servings, sorry, not .length, is equal to 1. We will put nothing, otherwise we'll put an s, because if it's 0, 2, 3, 4, anything like that, anything other than 1, we want to have that. So now we should say 1 serving, whereas if this was, you know, a larger number, it would say servings. Okay, so we got that. We had grapes, 1 serving of grapes. Now, how do we actually, you know, make that not the default? So I think what we need to do now is, let's go to our entry list screen, and we have this button here that so on select we do something. So we have this food picker. I'm wondering if the food picker, I feel like it should be part of this component. So right now what we do is after we select something, that's actually when we create a new one, but after we select something, we actually are going to want to show another modal or something, you know, some way to capture a number. I think we'll just have a different modal for this. So when we do this, let's await. Maybe we'll use a prompt for this instead. So let's do show. Let's make this async, and we'll actually make a variable called what's servings. And we're going to await a show about dialogue, just to kind of, is that the right one? Show about dialogue. No, that's not the right one. It's show, I think it's like show dialogue. I think it's a show dialogue. Yeah, show dialogue. And here is the builder, which we will actually return. We want to do an alert dialogue. And within this, we would essentially have some things. So title, text, servings, body, or sorry, content in this case. And content will probably be, we'll make it a column for now with some children. We're going to make sure it's main axis size is main axis size.min. And we want to have actions, and this is where we can have a button, and let's just use a text button, and I'm pressed in a minute, but it will say cancel, and we'll have another button called add or something. So let's just first of all see if that even works. So now if I click this and click this, we actually see this thing. Cool. Cancel doesn't do anything, add doesn't do anything. All right. So what do we want cancel to do? We want it to basically do navigator of context pop. And that's all good. And then this we're also going to pop, but we're going to do something a little more, a little different here. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to grab, I want to make this its own component now. So we're going to extract this widget, and we're going to call it servings picker. And we will move this to its own little place. And this can go in our components. Servings picker.dart. And I do actually like the plural of it a little bit more. Let's import in some things that we need. Then this gets a little bit cleaner. We're just returning this. And the idea is that this, although it's a dynamic thing, we're going to essentially go if servings equals null. We're just going to return out and not actually do anything. Otherwise, we'll do something a little bit different here. Okay, I'm going to clean this up a bit. It looks a little bit messy. Just needs some extra commas, and we should be pretty good. Okay, so I'm thinking inside here, what I kind of want to have is a sort of like some presets that would be pretty common. 1, 2, 3, 4, that kind of thing. So let's start by just making one, and this can just be a, let's do these as just a container with a child of text, and I'll just put the word one. We will wrap this with some padding. Actually, no, we'll put it in a center. We're going to give the container a width of 32, let's try, and a height of 32. Now for this we will have to refresh. That's interesting. Children container. Is it just that the color is wrong? Oh, maybe. Oh, it's because I didn't save this one file. It was still using the other one. That's so funny. Okay, so let's do this. So there we have our lovely one. What we'll do is we will make this container as a decoration. Not going for anything beautiful, just something that's kind of functional. And let's just use colors dot. Let's use our primary color, theme dot of context dot color scheme dot primary, and that should give it a nice little background. And we can just make the color of this style text style white, and maybe like font weight of font weight dot bold. Awesome. Now, what I actually want to do is, let's see, I am going to, these should also be wrapped in a little bit of padding, because we're going to have a few next to each other. And this is kind of, you know, really just like a button. So it's also going to need a wrap with widget. We're going to wrap it with a gesture detector, or even let's use an inkwell on tap, and we're going to do something there. So now I should get the little thing there, and it's great. Okay, so now I don't want to have to like duplicate this code. My intention is that this will actually be in a row. So let's actually put it in a row right now. And that shouldn't change anything other than put it there. And what I want to do is actually extract this widget. And we're going to keep this one in the same file. We're just going to call this like preset button. And there we go. And then with this preset button, we're going to have a few, we're just going to have something called value. And we're going to just make that the value right there. And actually, we're going to have two things. We're going to also have a final function which will take back the value, send back the value. Final function int value on pressed, we'll call it. And let's make both of these required, this dot on pressed and required this dot value. Okay, then what we do is we just kind of hoist this and go on pressed and pass in that value. And here is where we actually would want to put the value. All right, so now we can do value 1 on pressed, do something. Okay, and this will take value. And actually I realize we already know this value here, so there might be a cleaner way, but let's just see if what I'm doing kind of works. I'll make this say 2. So see, we can kind of have you know, these sort of things like this, and it will work. We'll keep that like that for now. And then what I'm thinking is underneath, or maybe there's like the last one or something, and actually, yeah. So we have our row, and then before our column ends, we're going to add a text form field, and let's just give it a decoration input decoration, and a hint text will be, we'll just say like custom. There we go. So we'll allow people basically to pick this or actually type out a custom one. And we do need to sort of restrict this to only allow numbers. So for that we can do, and I think we're already doing this somewhere else if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Perfect. Yes, we're doing this for entering calories and stuff. So we can basically take that same thing, import this file, import it without constructing it. And just add some commas there. So now if I try and type any letters, nothing, but I can type numbers. And I also can't even type a decimal or a symbol or anything like that. Okay, and what I also want to do in this is have a controller, text editing controller, controller equals text editing controller. And this is no longer a const, because we have this final variable here. And what we're going to do is give this controller a value, or a tie it in there. Okay, so what I also want to make in here is a function, and it'll be, actually it won't even be a feature, it's just going to be a void handle submit. And actually I realize, yeah, we will need the controller. Okay, so handle submit, and we can pass in optionally here a integer called value, we'll call it. Oh, it needs to be optional because we're saying it's optional. Okay, cool. And there's our servings picker. And actually we might, yes, okay. So the handle submit, what we want to do on this is essentially call this handle submit. When you click this, it's just going to kind of shortcut the submitting, and we're going to pass in val here. And same with this. And we're going to make this actually something even more better in a bit. However, this add button, we need to do something a little bit different. I'm also going to require context to get passed into here, and we'll see why in a minute. So now let's just pass in context and context. And that's because in here, what we actually want to do when we submit is do navigator.ofContext.pop, and we want to pop with that value. Now that value can be null, which is kind of a problem. And the whole point of this is that, no wait, let's not make it null. Let's require it to be done. So when we submit, we do that. Because what I want to do down here is on the add button, we essentially will check the value in the text editing controller. So value is going to be equal to controller.text, and then we can run the handle submit by passing the context and the value, except the problem is value right here is a string and this is here. So what we can do is we can call this string, actually we can do it this way, int.parse, and we'll use a try parse the value there. And this should always, more or less work unless it's completely blank. But that will do this, and then we can essentially go if value does not equal null, then we run the handle submit function. Okay, so that should pretty much work. Now let's add around this column, let's add a form and give it a key, and we'll create that form key. Final form key, is that what it is? No. Let me just open up our form provider because we do it there. It's a global key of type form key. So we'll also give this here. And that way we can also have a validator on this field. So validator is equal, and we'll just make the validator right here, value. If value equals null, or value dot is empty, return, I'm just going to return the word required. If not, we'll return null. We can also do our validation check here. If int.try parse value equals null, meaning it failed, then we can return invalid. This should never happen because we're already restricting what they could put in, and we're already checking to make sure it's not empty, but it's safe. Let's do it. Okay, so that means we do this, and we can, in this onPressed, we can actually go if form key.current state.validate, and we'll negate that. We just want to return. So let's just see if this even works. If I click the add button, required. If I type in something, it does work. Okay, great. So now if I do this, and then the idea is we're going to kind of like clicking these kind of bypasses you having to type anything, and allows you to, you don't have to click this. It's just going to be a one click, right? And that's basically what happens there. So let's make these buttons a little bit better here. I'm also going to replace this with a wrap, just so that on a really small screen, it doesn't get cut off. That looks kind of cool. It actually centered it automatically. And then instead of this, we can do something like children equals, and we're actually going to make an array of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's just start with that. And then we can actually map this, and we'll just call this value, we'll call it num. Actually, quantity is probably the correct word here. Maybe servings. Yeah, let's call it servings. Let's just remember to turn this back to a list. But in here, we're essentially going to, I'm just going to uncomment this for a second. We're going to basically return this, and the value instead of that is going to be servings, which I did not type correctly. So this is essentially doing the same thing, except it allows us, without having to duplicate all that code, we can kind of have, we're looping through this list and creating this instance each time. Something else we could do is, because we already know the serving number, sending up this is going to actually do the same thing. Therefore, in our present button, let's just make it kind of like a just an anonymous function that doesn't even pass anything, just because we already know the value in the context of this, so it's kind of unnecessary. Okay, lastly, we are now popping the value on here, and we need to then say we don't just want to pass the food, but we also are going to be passing the amount of servings. And this is throwing an error because the onSelect is expecting just a food, but now it's going to have an int of servings. And now we're going to have more errors because other things are using this. I'm just going to, let's have a to-do here. We have to kind of duplicate what we did over there for that one. And then here, food and serving. Servings is part of the onSelect. And what does this thing do again? This is the modal bottom sheet for the food picker. We get the servings back on select, add entry, yes. Okay, so then we're going to pass servings into this as well. So that means our add entry item now has, I think, a second parameter. We'll call it int servings. Right, it was, the date is, date makes sense to the last one. And then in this copy with, we can actually go servings equals servings. All right, and all of that hopefully will work. So let's choose orange, and let's actually do 4 servings of it. And you see, it's now 4 servings. So we had 1 to do here, because we're kind of hard coding 1. So when, this is the button, I think, on the adding entry, when you click this, we basically have to do the same thing here. So, although, I think, where did this to-do go? Wait, how does this work? Okay, we got the 1 here. Food equals show modal bottom sheet of the food form. Yeah, we got the food form, and then we also need to, if you're inserting a new food right from this context, we do have to ask, hey, how many, sure, you made the food, but how many servings are you having right now? So if we look at our food picker, maybe it is in the same file. Yeah. So after we get that, we then need to ask, hey, how many servings? And we essentially want to go if food doesn't equal null and servings does not equal null servings. And let's just test that flow out. So I'm going to add a new one, I'm adding an entry, but I'm like, oh, we don't have that already, so let's do PB for peanut butter. And now we got to choose, so it created it, that's all good, and then we want to choose, we add 4 helpings of that, and there it is there. Amazing. Okay. All right, so now that we have servings, that's a good start. I want to then kind of work on the idea of quantifying what these things mean. No one's thinking about, we used to show, we have the calories and, where is it? Right here. Calories, saturated fat, sugar. What we want to do is kind of normalize all this data into some kind of score of how healthy it is. And I did find an algorithm for this that we could easily update if we didn't think it works, but we're going to try it out. So what I want to do is and I think this is something we put on a food item itself. Yeah. So we're gonna just make, and this is gonna be a value as an integer, and we're gonna just call it points. Now I have just the, I found some JavaScript code for this, which we're gonna kind of rewrite in Dart, obviously. But basically what it does, it takes the calories times this sort of constant, it takes the fat times a constant, it takes the sugar times some constant, subtracts the protein, and then it rounds it. So this is a pretty, pretty easy thing to do. So really what we're gonna do is, we'll just kind of type this out. We want to take calories times 0.0305 plus, I think we just call this fat, yeah, and we'll do these in brackets too, times 0.275 plus sugar times 0.12, and then all of that ultimately, although it doesn't matter what order you do it in, we want to take the protein and subtract it out. It actually helps. Now this is in terms of a score, this is higher score is bad in this context. We're trying not to do that. So then that gets us, this thing, and we can basically take this whole thing and just go dot round, and we can just return this after. Now there's probably some extra brackets in here that I imagine VS Code might just remove. Nope, it didn't. So that's all good. So now we have something called points. I'm going to run the generator again. I'm actually not sure if it's necessary because this isn't, I think this is the stuff that usually affects it, but we'll just run it just to be safe. And let's just look while that's loading. So right now we have something called a caption. And what the caption I think should be is we'll actually take the amount of points and put the word points beside it. So there we go, grapes, 1 point. Now these are obviously not real because I just kind of typed in random numbers, but let's just see if we made this, this orange is 1,200 calories. It's now worth 48 points according to our algorithm, and that's a lot of points. We don't want that many points, but that's kind of cool. Okay, so now that we have the concept of points, we also want to show that in the entry card as well. So let's go to the entry card, and right now we're showing 1 serving. So let's do a similar kind of thing where we, in our entry model, let's add I think we called it caption. But first what we'll do is we'll make something called total points. And what we're going to do is take the food dot points and multiply it by the amount of servings, right? And this is actually just a getter. That way we now have this, and we can make now something called caption. And I kind of like what we're doing, but let's actually return, first of all, the total points, and then maybe in brackets we can basically do this logic here. So I'm just going to copy this, and there'll be some weird stuff because of we no longer have to say the word entry, so let's go like that and like that and close that off, and then because we're not accessing something, we can simplify that, and then right here we can actually go entry.caption just to keep it a little bit more clean. So now we can see that, and I think it probably makes sense to actually write the word points as well. One serving, 4 servings, 4 servings. Awesome. I don't think we actually tested the typing. We probably should. So let's add another apple, and let's actually type 7 here. There it is, 7. It did just work. Yay. I don't think we tested it. Now my question is this going to scroll? It does. Look at that. Because it's a list view. I just realized it. We never really got a list this long yet. Okay, so now we have that, and we have this. Yay. So lastly, I think for this chapter is I kind of want to show, if I want to not think of this necessarily as entries, this tab. I think we want to call this like today or days or something like that. Actually, I won't worry about the verbiage, but I kind of want a way to then sum up and give you kind of like this summary of how you're doing on your day. So let's go to the entry list screen. And we already kind of have a this entry date switcher, but we're going to make a new component. It's going to be called like maybe like daily summary .dart. And let's just make it stateless, daily summary .dart. And let's just put this in here, daily summary. Okay, now in order to get that data, let's also pass in the date. And we can go here and make a final string date. Required this dot date, and then this is just missing that. Okay, now this doesn't do anything yet, but we're gonna do some stuff in here. I'm thinking this could be a, let's just start with some simple stuff. Like we would basically have, let's just write the word test as we always do. There we go. Okay, so if we know the date, we can actually, figure out some things to do with it. So what we can actually do is go final entries equal ref, but we need to actually make this into a consumer widget first so that we have access to our ref. So we can go ref, and we'll watch in this case so that when dates change, everything's good. And we want to watch the entry list provider specifically at the date that was, passed in here. Okay. And then what we can do is we can kind of calculate the total points. So let's just, first of all, just to make it simpler, let's just do something like entries.length, just to make sure we're getting it. So there's 10, and I bet if we count these, there's 10. So how do we figure out, how do we do the math here to figure out how many entries, or what's the total points? So we could just have like a for loop that essentially, goes through and adds them up and comes up with a thing, and that's a fine way to do it. But there's a better way. So I'm going to make something called total points, and we're actually going to take the entries and we're going to do a map, and we'll just do e, and then e dot total points. So that's that value that's already summing up, or multiplying the food times the amount of servings, that kind of thing. And we're going to make this into a list, dot to list. And then we can actually run this function, wait, maybe it's actually on the interval, dot to list. Okay, cool. So that is now going to be an array of, a list of just the total points instead of the entries themselves. And then what we can do is actually run this thing called reduce, and we'll just call this A and B, and we can just go A plus B is what we're returning. And this will now be this, except we can go total points. So now we should see 100 points. Now, if we went in and, edited all this stuff, or added these, I bet it would add up. I don't feel like doing that right now. So let's just actually delete, this, for instance. And we'll actually see it goes down by 48. So I think this is working correctly. Cool. So just a nice little one-liner to basically, this is the part that's summing the numbers together. This is the part that's just getting the value we care about from it, all in one sweet, sweet line. Okay, then I like the idea of, what we could kind of have is, maybe we're saying you're allowed to have 100 points, a day or something, right? 52 of 100 points. Cool. But let's, that might be something that we might want to configure in some settings or something like that. But for now, let's just make a new file called constants.dart. And let's just call it like total daily points. And we'll just set it to 100. And I meant to write the word const here. Now we do get this warning. I like doing my constants in uppercase when it's like this sort of like global constant. So I usually just ignore this for my constants files, and just to get rid of that little thing. So then here we can actually reference this by just going like this. So nothing will change, but now we have it in another file because we'll probably want to use this. Okay, it's cool to see it like this, but I feel like seeing a pie chart is better. I recently stumbled on this package just by Googling pie chart, and it worked fine for me. So let's get that going. So I'm gonna add this. Flutter pub add pie chart. And there we go. And let me remember how to use it. Cool. Here's kind of the, I'll just zoom in a bit. All right. And then let's do this. So I'm going to wrap this in a column, and we're going to make sure that it doesn't try and expand too much. Axis size.min. Then here we will use this pie chart package. So pie chart is this. And there we go. And maybe a pie chart's not even the right thing for this, just kind of how I'm visualizing it. But we're gonna do it anyways. Then we have to make something called a data map. So let's just make that data map. And actually wonder what would happen if we went over 100 in this. That's something to think about. And we can just call this like used remaining, something like that. And this should actually be this, and these will be some numbers. So total would be this, and the remaining will be that constant, which is total daily points minus what we've used. Oh, I forgot a comma here. And now data map, we have to also, I think, cast it specifically as this. Now we will have an error here because it's expecting to be doubles, so we'll just convert these to doubles. Double. And just make sure we have that bracket. And now we'll refresh and nothing will show up, and that's because, oh, it did show up. Look at that. So that's cool, except it's really big. So I believe there's a few ways to do this, but if we wrap this in a size box, of a width of maybe like 100 and a height of 100. It should all conform there. Now this is kind of a problem because we kind of have things like a legend and stuff. I don't really care about that. I think there's ways to just turn that off. Let's see, legend options, show legend. Yeah. Color list. So yeah, there's a lot of cool things we could kind of do here. Let me just grab this for the legend options, and I don't care about the sheet. So that kind of did some stuff. Show legends false. I think that's like the main thing we care about. Yeah, so I'm just gonna get rid of all this stuff, and all we really cared about is showing legends as false. All right, then we also don't really need the, I don't know what those are called, but the chart value options, I guess. And this is of type chart value options. And I'm assuming there'll be something like show chart values, false. And this can also be a const. So at least we kind of get this this sort of thing here. I remember there being a cool thing. I think it's, yeah, ring stroke width. Let me just make it like 3 or something. No, that's okay. I don't remember. But this gets us some kind of like visual, sort of idea. Let's add grapes again. And let's add like 3 servings of grapes. So you'll see it kind of went up. Let's delete something that's pretty big, and it goes down. So pretty fun. Now what happens if we actually add in, what's our really big one that we made? It's not even here anymore, but banana. Peanut butter, 5 servings. Let's add another peanut butter. Or let's add jelly, 5 servings. Okay, interesting. So we're now above 104 of 100, and that's probably just because we're expecting this to be a thing. So I think what we should also do here is okay, so this converts, it's becoming a negative number, so we should actually, I'm going to just make this a new variable here. Final remaining equals this. I know I didn't spell it right. And we can just be, if remaining is less than 0, we will actually just make it 0. So that way the pie chart will always, fill up. So now if I get rid of some things, we'll see smaller, that kind of thing. So there we go. We got some, a little bit of stuff here. It's not scrolling anymore. I think it's just because it's actually right length. Oh, interesting. Why can't I can't scroll anymore. Oh, you know what? I forgot this isn't an iOS app, so you can't scroll by dragging. It's the mouse wheel. Beautiful. All right, cool. This is good. This is good. All right, I think I'm going to leave it at that for now. Oh, look at that. We do have an error, and that's probably because it's probably to do with our pie chart. So maybe we can fix that real quick. So we're getting this on the entry list screen, daily summary. Yeah, so we need to also probably do something in here. If entries dot length, or if entries dot is empty, we should probably just return something like a size box, because there's nothing really to show when there is nothing. That's kind of cool. Look, it animates. So let's actually add some more stuff here. So let's say, wow, 36 points, oranges or whatever. It's too bad it, there would be a way, there probably is a way to fix this. And actually, I wonder if we could. So the daily summary, let's not pass the date in. Instead, let's have a date equals ref.watch, because we already have this entry date provider, right? And we'll use that as the date. And I wonder if this will cause this not to actually fully rebuild. And then we no longer pass this in. And this might actually make it so that the animation persists between these views. I'm not totally sure, but I think it will. Yeah. You know why it doesn't? It's because it's already, I think, in memory. But when you go to the new one, or when it goes from nothing, okay. Anyways, there's probably a way to, to basically like have this reanimate every time, but that's, not a huge deal. Basically, it's animating when it's actually being constructed from scratch. There's probably a way to have a setting to, okay, on this change, do this. So we'll leave it at that. This is coming along nicely. See you in the next one.